Welcome to another episode of the GS podcast. We're here with Elena Christoforos from Akaki Grove here in Cyprus, and we're going to have a conversation about sustainable farming, permaculture, and everything in between today.
Yeah, so could you tell us what Akaki Grove is and how your love for nature led you to start this initiative?
It's an olive and citrus grove outside of Nicosia, and we apply sort of the laws or the rules of permaculture and agroecology there to grow.
What inspired you to go into environmental science?
This goes way back, okay? So first inspiration ever was my godfather got me a VHS cassette. Do you know what that is?
I do.
Okay. Of David Attenborough's Life on Earth. I think that was 1987, 1988, somewhere there. And I was 5 or 6, and I watched it so many times. It had a green case. I watched it so many times I had to get me another one with a white. It came in a white VHS cover. So that changed my life. I just really loved nature and everything I saw. I watched that on repeat. And then, of course, you know, what you do with your family and things. So going up to the mountains for picnics or doing things. And it's funny how you turn into who you are from all those external forces. But the first thing was my David Attenborough Life on Earth cassette I got. And then when I was around 9, I said I wanted to be an environmentalist, and people would tell me some very, you know, the older generation then would go, there's no such thing. And I'd be like, yes, there is. And at school, my school was very good. The school I went to was very good at talking about these things. It was quite up to date at the time, you know. And we were talking about sort of plastic degradation and pollution and all those things when I was around 8 or 9. And I just had a passion for it. I loved animals. I loved being outdoors. I think some series I watched as well, maybe I shouldn't have been, but sort of I always wanted to have a penknife on me in case, you know, you're in the nature and you need to do something. That might be MacGyver. I liked MacGyver. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was a MacGyver fan. I don't know.
But the original. I don't know if that's
runs now.
Sorry. So I've just always had a love for animals and nature and being outdoors and photography. So photography is one. So my dad taught me photography, and that was a big thing because I'd like to go outside and see what I could snap with my camera. So.
All right. What the evolution of, say, David Attenborough video to now in education, formal education, let's say, and all the experience that you have, has it been a straight line or has it been quite divergent? What
my journey?
Yeah.
It's been an interesting path. I see for me, it's very coherent. It makes sense to me, but a lot of people think, what were you doing? So I went to university. Before I went to university, I was applying. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to do art or fashion or something. And nothing wrong with that because my hobby was art as well. One of my hobbies is art and things. And I went and I applied without my parents knowing, actually. I said I'd go do that, and I got accepted. And I told my parents I got accepted into a foundation course in London. Then I went there. And 3 days in, I realized I'd made a terrible mistake for me. I thought, I don't want to do this. I knew I wanted the books. I knew I wanted something different. I knew it wasn't for me. And I wouldn't say anything. I wasn't saying anything. My mum, she was, you know, she spotted and she goes, Elena, tell me. And I said, what? She goes, tell me what's going on. I said, Mama, I made a mistake. I don't want to do this. Big discussion at home. If I should come back for a year, should I stay in London? What should I do? Ended up staying in London for a year, even though there was a big discussion about me doing this. Redid A-levels, but decided to do different syllabus so I could cover all the syllabus. So, you know, we have modules. So I did all the modules I hadn't done. So I ended up having a really all-rounded biology and geography knowledge because I did all the modules we didn't do at school. And I applied for my geography degree. So I started off doing a geography degree at King's in London, and then I completed that degree and I decided I was trying to figure out what to do next. And I was torn between medicine and psychology. And for various reasons, I ended up going off to do, no, sorry, that was after. Gosh, sorry. I did my geography degree and then I thought, what could I do? And I was looking at various options you can do with geography because there's lots of things you can go into. And I was very interested in cognitive and social anthropology. I was just interested in anthropology. So I went off and did my MSc in anthropology down the road. I was at LSE. And then after that, that's when I was thinking, what will I do? What will I continue with? And, you're a student, you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. And I was always very keen on doing lots of things. What would I do? And I decided that's when I was torn between medicine and psychology. I ended up doing psychology. So I did some courses. Then I ended up doing a conversion course, an MSc in psychology. It was a BPS accredited course. And I started working. So during my degree, I was working with some children with autism as work experience. And then my master's, my MSc. And then I got work experience in some hospitals. I would do that whilst I was doing my MSc in psychology. I was actually doing some days of work experience at a hospital in London. And then I finished that, and I was again trying to figure out what I was going to do. And to cut the long story short, I ended up sort of doing various courses online after I had finished university. I did, some things on nutrition, environment. I did a sustainability and circular economy course, and I ended up coming back to the environment. And it makes sense to me. So I went from the different scales of the geographical level and what's happening now to how societies and cultures interact and what are their social and cultural norms within their environment. And then it was the individual psychology and how that works. And then it feels like it's a full cycle for me. I feel that way.
So when you realized that the course that you had chosen wasn't for you, I'm sort of being what's the word? Selfish here, I guess, in my role that I have here at school, also as a parent, but when you realized that wasn't the course for you, why did you find it hard not to be honest and, disclose that?
The initial course, first one.
Yeah.
I just felt a bit bad because I'd already, got up. I went to London. I was there. Had I not been there, it would have been easy to say, look, change my mind, applications. But what I did was I was there, realized it wasn't for me. And then I was on the phone. And after I trying to find, because it was the option of you have to come back home and work for a year, which made sense. Mm-hmm. Or you're here now. Let's just make the most of being here now and do a course with it or do something with your time and get an experience of living here. And I was lucky enough that they eventually agreed on that. And I did do that. It's difficult because I had gotten up and left and I felt a sense of responsibility that I made a decision. And then 3 days into it, I realized it was a mistake. But if you don't, if you have parents who are accepting and they're willing to listen to you, and I think that's the number one thing, I could have ended up doing it, being miserable, wasted time, dropped out a year later. And that would have been an experience in itself as well. But I think it's better to just say it and deal with it. And if you have parents who listen, and you can have a conversation with them, then that's the number one thing. Because, you make mistakes and you make wrong decisions. And it wasn't as if it was something, it could have been life altering for me. It wasn't something dangerous or a situation. It was,
right.
And you have to, I think communication's key.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you can change your mind and you can do different things. And I think that's part of the journey to realizing, what you're going to do.
Right.
So by taking all this diverse education that you've had, how did you go on to apply what you've learned and what you've experienced in starting Akaki Grove, and how is that helping with traditional farming methods in Cyprus?
Okay, so a big part of it for me was also, I've always been passionate about the environment and about protecting nature and animals since I was young. Yeah. Then due to other personal reasons, I got very into health. Mm-hmm. So I'd spend my spare time reading academic journals or medical journals. And it brought me back to thinking what we're doing to the planet in and of itself is a problem, but what we're doing to our health as well is a problem, because we can eat clean, healthy foods, but are they clean? So what are the farming practices? What are the methods we're using? And, and being a geography student and at school and later you see, you read about monocultures and, and now, as I've understood, you also tackle permaculture in your A-levels, which I'm not sure we did that fully in our A-levels, but something, we look at, and that's very important to see how we can work with the environment to make it more sustainable, to reduce our waste, or maybe zero waste if we can, and use it and use all the physical aspects of it to increase, rather to not deplete the environment and to have it as sustainable as possible, and then to not be pumping chemicals or damaging things into, damaging, or to use methods that damage the environment. And that's really important. And what crops do we use and how do we use them? And permaculture is a very interesting topic. It's huge. My colleague, part of the Akaki Grove team and the Gotgod team and the Oleaphen team, he has done courses on permaculture and he specializes in soil health and environmental engineering and permaculture. And I learn a lot from him every day just by being there. So it's, topped up my knowledge. So it's really important. We could utilize this in Cyprus everywhere. We have a problem with water. So permaculture looks at water using the natural sort of, the contours of the land, or to see how we can sort of use the water and see water flow. We're living in a place which is arid. We don't have a lot of water. We're looking at desertification as a future. We don't want that. So those are really important things to consider when we look at farming.
Have you managed to see any change?
We've seen massive changes at the Grove. Of course, there was an existing infrastructure there. So when I took over, it was a grove. It was not abandoned per se, but it wasn't managed well because it was just sort of left there due to various other reasons and people being busy with other projects and things. So there was a watering infrastructure there. Now, ideally, if we were starting from scratch, we would use the slopes and, we'd have some sort of a pond, and that's when Nicolas' specialty would come in. But right now we're trying to build the soil, and maintain the soils. To build the soil, what we say there is that we build the soil and that enables trees to grow. We don't grow trees, we grow soil. And that's really important because when you increase your organic matter in the soil, you're increasing its capacity to hold water. And that's really important for us. Mm-hmm. So we have seen changes with our methods, with what we're doing. We're doing lots of things. And we've seen big changes in soil health, in biodiversity at the Grove, healthy, the trees, and also the phenols, the polyphenols in the olives.
Have you managed to influence others around you regarding practices?
Yes and no. So we do have a couple of people now that have younger people that are coming back that have started a little farm near us as well. So they follow us on Instagram. We follow them. We have conversations. We're trying to make a change. I think people are focusing more because since we started the Gotgod project, which is a circular economy project that brings rescued hens to the Grove. We got a lot of international coverage, media coverage. So that's drawn a lot of attention. They're like, what are you doing there? And it's a simple, concept, but it's not being done. So people are beginning to ask more questions, or people are saying, that's interesting. Happened to me the other day. I went somewhere and he goes, I was at my son's tournament, and I got out of the car and someone goes, you do that hen thing, don't you? So, okay, that's really interesting. Great. It's something. You need that so people can register, why are we doing this? What's going on? And then it's a simple concept. If you explain it, if they see it simple, people can be part of that.
Yeah. This concept, the Gotgod project, how's it set up? What is it about?
Okay, so we were having talks about how to sort of at Akaki Grove, how to sort of really speed up the process of waking it up, because for years being a conventional grove, we stopped all pesticide use and everything 6 years ago. 6 years ago. So we went through the process of becoming organic. There's a stage, it's called metavatiko. It's like the transition stage. Mm-hmm. And it was doing much better anyway, but we needed that, that push. And Nicolas said, listen, any ecosystem and any agricultural ecosystem needs animals, because that speeds up the carbon cycle. So we had a long discussion. He said we could do this and what we could do, and we were thinking about how to diversify revenue. And I said, no, we can't kill anything. I can't. But I know. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I personally can't establish a relationship with the animals and then think we're going to, slaughter them to eat them or use them in a way. At some point, if you have animals for animal produce, at some point you have to look at economic viability, as harsh as that sounds. If you're looking from a business perspective, which I don't quite agree with anyway, and then at some point they're not economically viable, so you would slaughter maybe for meat or whatever. In the case of the hens, they're not slaughtered for meat because the hens produce eggs, and at some point they're a different breed, so they're slaughtered and they're sent off for body bits or whatever they might be used for. So I said, no, we have to find a way to have the animals here. And we were joking about the animals retiring here or something. And we made a joke that we'd have fields full of mini cows or something, just geriatric cows. But then Nicolas reached out to a friend of ours, Nick, and his dad had hens, egg producing hens, and they were going off to slaughter. And it sort of happened, they talked about it, and we said we'd get the rescue. So Nicolas said, we'll bring those hens and they can retire here. And I said, great, because we're not killing anything that way. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're rescuing them. And that's how it happened. So we bring the rescue hens to the grove. We have them in areas. So we're giving them, first we know, why do we want the hens? They fertilize, they scratch at the soil, they help with our organic matter. And they eat pests. Certain pests that we don't want. So there's pest control, and therefore it reduces your potential use of pesticide. Even if it's organic, we still don't want that. We're trying to not use anything. It's a zero kill, and reduces your need for fertilizer, even if that's organic, that you buy, because essentially what is fertilizer, Yeah. And then we thought, okay, what else is a problem? We need to supplement their food, because we could buy feed, but somehow it feels that we need to make this a circular economy product. This needs to be a loop closed. I thought food waste is the biggest problem in Europe and in Cyprus, with 300 kilos per annum, per capita per annum. I mean, we have 300 kilos food waste per person per year here, which is approximately around 10% of the carbon footprint of a Cypriot. That's one of the highest.
That's staggering.
Yeah. It is. And when we thought, okay, food waste, we'll get food waste. We'll give them the food waste. They'll eat it. It can't be rotten. It can start decomposing. It has to be good. So you've eaten something, a few days later it's in the bin, it's fine. So banana peels or whatever. There are only a few things that they can't eat. It's onions and avocados. And so we went to a school and we suggested the pilot project. So we needed to do a pilot project to see how it would go. So how will it work? How much will they eat? Will this work? How will the runs be? To monitor the soil, to monitor the hens and everything. And it went really well. So we figured this is a very good plan, but now we need to use God as an educational program as well, platform. So to educate parents and children about this, because you need to get, to teach people when they're young. So this becomes embedded. Doesn't matter if you might go and study environmental science, but you might end up studying architecture, for example. And if you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking of various or it could be anything you study. If in the back of your mind, it's within an environmental framework and this framework of sustainability, then whatever you do will have that in mind. So it's really important to teach children young and to respect the environment where they live in and to be aware and for their own health. Right. So, did I go off topic? Possibly no. It was good.
So it's not necessary to purchase food for them.
So, on occasions we would have some food just to get them, to teach them just to get back in, because we have mobile coops. So there's a coop. We've got an electric fence around because we learned the hard way. At first we didn't. And then everything was fine until we had stray dogs that hunters leave, and then they make their way into the grove. The fox, everyone goes, the foxes must be a problem. It's not that much of a problem because the fox would come in and take one, very tidy, knows its path. The dogs would come in and just, so we've got electric fences, so that protects them, but that means they're free all day. The coop is open, so they naturally go in and, they go in the evening, and it's still left open because they're safe. Yeah. And
so this project was featured in The Independent.
Yes.
How did you feel knowing that your work was public and it went social?
It was featured in around 80 media sites around the world. We got calls from, like the Philippines. I just saw you on TV. Or, it was good because I think I could be wrong. I think it was the most sold story on Reuters that week, because that's how it works. Reuters does a story and then it's, bought by other media outlets. It felt good. I just felt that people needed a bit of positive news, something lighthearted, but also at the same time with impact. It's something happy, but it can bring real change. It was really good. I did get nervous. Nicolas more used to doing interviews and things. I think he was more relaxed about it. But very excited again. Very excited. We were both very excited. We got news. It got media attention because we need this to work. We need more people to be interested. And the more media coverage you get, more people are stopping saying, what are you doing? And why are you doing this? And what's the problem? And what are you tackling? And I think that's really important. And we just need to see more. We have a problem though, because I don't want to say anything bad about Cyprus because I am from here and I love it here. But I think that had we been potentially in maybe a different country, not all, but some, we would have had more attention from businesses immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here, it's been a bit of a struggle to get attention, to get people to say, we want to be part of this. So we've put out calls and things because we need people to be on board to really want to do this.
Yeah.
But, that's why, we need more people to go into this field and to get it going. A multidisciplinary team is great because you can tackle it from all sides and know how to do that.
Did you get attention from outside Cyprus, like whether it be, let's say, business or marketing, or even academic interest?
We went to there's a international Yale symposium on olive oil and health. And that's where we presented Nicolas did the presentation and he presented the idea. And there were people very interested in potentially looking at doing this at other olive groves because, there are benefits to doing this and it helps with the polyphenols as well. And people are interested in this. So there are talks with, Spain and Brazil and things. People are very interested in something, but then you need, I've had an Erasmus program come to the Grove and talk to us as well. The interest is there. We just need, there needs to be a bit more. We're working on it. We just need a bit more interest to keep it going, really. Cause it's so simple. It's good that it's simple. That's what makes it very,
Have you ever thought of getting student volunteers from different schools to come over the summer and maybe learn about what you're doing and help?
We've talked about this before. We're happy to have someone come. It depends, to help out and things.
Yeah.
And for work experience as well. That's something we're open to. Just, as with anything, there are, you're on a grove, there are certain risks. You just be careful of snakes and things in the summer. But that's, if you're getting into the field, that's something anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Going for a walk in the mountains,
Yeah.
It's the same. You're just careful of snakes. But of course we'd have, I'd love to have sort of pupils wanting to do their thesis on this. That'd be great,
There you go.
So there's a lot to be done. And we're interested in having academic institutions. A couple have reached out just to see if we could sort of work with them to do the research because we need to monitor the soil because you have them there. How long can you have the hens there? How much is too much nitrogen, under the olive trees? Will the olive trees be too happy and then not give us olives? So and how many days would you leave the hens there until you rotated them? And how would that differ for different crops? So there's a lot of science. There's a lot of things we're studying and there's a lot of studying to be done there and research to be done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People bring bees to different, right? They deliver bees. This has a lot of, I guess, different considerations in that someone could potentially have a traveling, group of hens that they could take to different groves or vineyards. Grapes seem to take the spotlight here in Cyprus. I don't know if permaculture is starting to influence that part of the, that industry.
I don't know enough, to be quite honest, as to what everyone's doing. I know there are some people, and I know abroad in vineyards, they have geese and ducks, and there's many case studies, and I'm sure if you look it up, you'll see how they use the ducks and the geese and the hens to look after sort of problems with snails or other pests. And there's a really nice film, but that's your last question, but I'm going to mention it now. I think it's called The Biggest Little Farm. My children love watching it, but it's an idea it's a similar idea that how they wanted the ecosystem to work together and they used permaculture to get it going and how they used one species to help, just using nature to help it thrive. Mm-hmm. I think, people are moving towards this, but I think people are also very scared. I think unless you know enough or you've got someone there, guiding you, people are scared, if we lose the crop. And for some people, that's their whole livelihood there. So people are a bit scared to do something that they're not trained in or they haven't been given support. So I think government support is very important here. Government needs to come in and promote permaculture and organic farming and, rather than just give subsidies are great, but it needs to be appropriate subsidies. So to give a subsidy to get a massive tractor up in the mountains on a slope whereby you shouldn't really have a tractor because you're destroying the soil or whatever it may be, it needs to be appropriate. So I think there we do need to do work. And if we were promoting this, I think more people would be. And to show them the long scale, the long term benefits. Because in the long term, you end up using less money on fertilizers and pesticides if you're doing it properly.
Yeah.
Because you're working with nature and not against it. So it's really important. Yeah.
Talking about government, I'm curious because, I'm coming from the States. I've been here long enough to have a really good picture of how things operate. But what would it take in regards to government? What would it take to for you to be satisfied with, okay, the government is like, they've got the right mindset, they've got the right energy. From your perspective, what would that look like? Or
we were very different.
Yeah.
I just think that we're very good at some things here, but we're very behind with anything environmental here. We're light years away. I think, what would I be happy with is a government actually looking at sustainability as a number one problem? Because we are in an area that's predicted to be a desert, within a few decades, couple of decades, just like Barcelona, Mallorca and other places. It's not just us. And we would really need to look at a lot of things to become sustainable. I mean, it's bottom up, it's top down. All you need to do is drive. And I love this place, but it could be a really beautiful place, but you're driving along the road and there is rubbish everywhere. For example, this small thing. We need to develop the culture of, littering is not okay. Starting from there. Something small. So if we're littering, it means we're not thinking of the environment. We're not considering what's beyond our backyard, our back garden. That bothers me. And you can see this everywhere. There are areas which are stunning, but when you look closely, it's filled with plastic. So for example, that's one aspect. Way too much plastic use, not enforcing certain things regarding plastic use. Just this idea that we can throw it anywhere. I would really like to see fines. I would really love to see that, but serious fines, or the pay as you throw. I mean, that's been delayed for years. That's absolutely ridiculous. It should have been in place ages ago. They were supposed to announce various things in July. They haven't done that. There's a delay. Okay, they did it in Arlanja, and I know a lot of cases whereby people were dumping outside Arlanja. So Arlanja did well. But is everyone actually throwing the way they should be? People are complaining about the cost of the bags. Is that the best way to have done it? Maybe we could look at examples of how it could be done elsewhere. Has it been done elsewhere? For example, Nicolas was working on a system regarding waste management, and home waste, in France decades ago. Could we get examples elsewhere? And how can we use psychology and anthropology to see how culture here responds and what can we do, to do it? It's a big problem here. And that's just one thing. You can look at waste management. You can look at water management. You can look at, transparency. With regards to any environmental things, we need people who actually understand the problem, genuinely understand it, and have advisors who understand it and can find a way to bring sort of economic sustainability and economic success along with environmental parameters, really true green environmental parameters. Because this place could be a heaven, but it's not right now. I hate to say it, we've got some beautiful spots, but there's way too much litter and way too many problems here and way too much resistance. There's a lot of resistance to some things, but it's shifting slightly. As I said, you could, was it here or maybe downstairs? Like, you see, when I first came back, from the UK, I remember there was a little organic shop and it was sort of the size of my wardrobe and there were a few supplements in there that were organic and a few organic chocolates or whatever. And now you have shops everywhere. That's an indication of certain things changing. So I'm not completely negative. I believe change is possible. And when you give simple solutions and you explain things, it becomes easier. When you make the person feel that they can be part of that solution, then that makes it easy to do it because it doesn't change a lot. It's not like this whole change of your whole lifestyle. It's a little habit. It's a little change. It's a slight behavior change that can bring in a much bigger change. And it's just awareness. You've got to find the way to tap into people's sort of and make it easy for them. Because if you have to go out of your way, imagine having children, jobs, whatever, and you think, it's too much. Whereas if you give an easy solution, I think it's doable. I think we can get there slowly, but surely. Yeah. I like to think.
In relation to problems at the farm, climate change, our climate is getting a lot warmer. Mm-hmm. How does that affect your farming methods, permaculture?
This year's a good example. The weather was absolutely nuts. So we had heat, we had prolonged heat, very warm. Then suddenly we had really cold temperatures, Then we had, I remember it was like -4, and 2 weeks later we hit 30 something. And that for the trees, that can be quite a shock. So, the wintering, the trees are like in winter mode, let's say the olive, and then suddenly summer came, and then it got cold again. Then we had summer. So we've not seen flowering like this. And Nicolas, who's been in the game, the olive, for many years more than me, has, said he hasn't seen something like this before. And we were worried about the flowers. We thought, what's happening with the weather? So we're constantly, we're constantly on our weather apps messaging each other. There's dust, there's heat, because the weather does impact, and it does change. We know there are certain cycles, but if you have extremes, because climate change isn't just about it heating up only, it's about the extremes. Areas getting colder, suddenly hotter. It's extremes of weather and things that are not quite as predictable. That can affect flowering. So we were lucky this year. I have to say this, sorry, I don't normally do it, but it's kind of become this compulsive thing that we do. The flowering's been okay, but it's been odd. It's been odd. We've had delayed flowering, we've had delayed olives coming out, but we're getting there. But that affects it, or the lack of water. Didn't rain. So what's happening? We had a very dry year. We've seen poisonous snakes at the Grove this year, which for the past 5 years I haven't seen. We've seen black snakes. Maybe once we've seen a poisonous snake. This year they're more. They're going near where the water is until they move on. So things like this do affect little.
Do you think that would affect the future production of olive oil?
I think
changes taste or?
So there's a lot of things that affect. It's how you manage the tree, manage things on the Grove as well. So, how the tree is, how happy it is, how rich the soil is, and the tree's defenses, or the polyphenols of the tree's defenses. So it depends how you manage a tree. Olives are quite good, without, they need less water. I'll give you an example. The citrus trees need 5 times more water, maybe even 8, depending on what. The olive trees need less. And if you manage the soil well, and if there are times when you should water and times when you shouldn't water, depending on their cycle, if you monitor these things, you will affect the outcome of your product. But of course, climate change is a big part of it. We have to monitor very carefully. And if we don't have water, we have to know when we need water to water. We have to make sure the soil is in a good condition to withstand a heat wave or drought period. So of course, everything's got to be monitored very closely. But these things are, and these things are, you see this, and that's why it's really important to work with a group of people. That each person's got their specialty, and you can come together, pull together as a team, and generate ideas. And you can have an idea in someone who's done more the nitty gritty science, but could say, but that mechanism would do that, and you can have, so that's why it's really nice to work with people, because it generates more ideas.
Yeah.
So, for example, Akaki Grove, Akaki Grove makes an olive oil. So it's an early harvest high phenolic. So, in Europe, anything above 250 milligrams per liter, is considered, you get the health benefit, because polyphenols are unique to olive oil. The polyphenols that are unique to olive oil are linked to, they're anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. They've got a lot of health benefits, a lot. So the Akaki Grove makes an early harvest high phenolic. So it's around, some varieties can be around 600, some can be 400, because we harvest early, and we know. So we say it's a blend of around 400, 500. We go to high potency. It's the other company, the other project I'm part of with Nicolas and Nick, and that's Oleaphen, and that's a high potency phenolic oil. So it's a nutraceutical medicinal olive oil, and harvesting olives to get an excellent quality extra virgin olive oil is important as it is. When you're looking at high potency, you have to be really spot on with what you're doing to get those phenols. And it's got to do with proprietary knowledge as well in the milling process, but also how you manage the trees. So for example, I believe in a place like Cyprus, where we have the capacity to produce olive oil like that, we could sort of be doing more of this and getting really high quality products out on the market, because it's difficult to compete with countries that are huge and have, monocultures as far as the eye can see, or groves as far as the eye can see. So we're looking to look at quality products, organic quality products. But that's very interesting with the polyphenols, because there's health benefits there. So you're tying, your love for something healthy and love for a healthy environment. And that's a product that you can combine your interests when you study something, and, bring them together, in whatever job you end up doing in the future or project you work on.
You mentioned you did psychology.
Yes.
How did that help with your science work in producing the polyphenol olive oil?
So with regards to the polyphenolic olive oil, I learned a lot about it because I started reading about it. Then I sort of tracked, I approached Nicolas, who's the leading expert in this, and, started working it. So through Nicolas, through that work, I ended up, because I hadn't studied that, but I had an interest in that due to my background and due to the geography and due to everything we discussed earlier and health. That was a new learning curve. So post-university, post-studies, post having graduated, I then started learning a lot and reading a lot. So the academic journals out there are numerous. And on our website, there is a site that goes to resources, and there you can find all the journals if you're interested to find out more about it. Thousands of studies going on and across various fields, because, it's not just, the harvesting aspect of it it's the chemical aspect of it and the polyphenols, but it's also the epidemiological aspect of it. Sorry. It's that, health and how people are healthier and how that affects the health systems, how that affects society and how that affects so many other things. So the thing that's really important, I think geography taught me this. I'm going back again. I'm going to be coming, is that everything we do has an impact. So this piece of paper I'm holding came from somewhere. This phone I have, everything we do has an impact. I'm not saying stop doing everything because then you can go crazy. You just you can end up being very anxious or very, almost neurotic. And some people say, oh, how do you do all these things and aren't you stressed? No, I take control where I can. And on some things I can't, or it doesn't suit me, but I try to make up for it elsewhere. And we have to balance things out because also there's a lot of responsibility coming from government. It's on both, it's on both ends of the spectrum, and that we have to do things from our end, and then things need to be done from the other side. And I think I've just been carried away by myself. I'm saying that everything we do has an impact. And that's why I go back to my geography degree, is that trying to tell children that I go to the shop and I buy a packet of coffee or whatever, or I do something that has an impact. Where has that come from? Who's farmed it? Who's harvested it? Has that been done ethically, environmentally, or human rights wise, or, what's the environmental footprint of that coming here? But there's so many things that we look into. It's not just as simple. There was a really nice, I'll share that with you later. There was something really nice about how that puts that into perspective, because some things might be more environmentally friendly than we think. Yeah. But it's about seeing that everything has a knock-on effect, and we can make a difference by little tweaks we can do.
Right. Yeah. And the research, because I have a background in like special ed, I've worked with lots of different populations and consulted with many families, children, doctors, regarding medication, use of medication, and, trying to get all that medication dialed in just right, which is a lot of work, and not always, of course, supportive to the overall health and well-being of a kid. Maybe it helps them academically, let's say. But polyphenols is, really minimizes, well, I should say first, it mimics a lot of what the medications are meant to do. So like you said, it's like this, where do things come from and how does it impact? It's like, less reliance on medications, and better, say, support for an individual.
I think,
going that direction versus sort of Western.
I was going to say it's very interesting because I think a big part of this is also health and preventative medicine or preventative health and having a healthy lifestyle. So nutraceutical grade or high potency phenolic olive oil as a supplement, and then a really good quality early harvest high phenolic olive oil as a daily use as part of your daily regime is something that promotes well-being overall. And we know the anti-inflammatory effects and antioxidant effects they have. For example, oleocanthal mimics sort of the blocks pathways that lead to inflammation, just like ibuprofen. And I mean, there's lots of things like this, and I won't go into everything in detail. There's many polyphenols, and they have different, activity. They help with so many things. We can look at, blood sugar regulation. We could look at inflammation. We can use the neuroprotective aspect of them, how the antioxidant. There are just so many things. It's so interesting and such an exciting field. And this is definitely linked to education again. And how do I bring in got here? And this is where it's interesting. This is how everything ties together. And you said, how does psychology come into this? How does you asked me earlier, my tennis coaching, all these things are linked, because when we realize that what we do affects every aspect of us, okay, for some jobs and for some things, we have to compartmentalize, and that's how the brain works. A child that's developing, we know has to compartmentalize things so it can learn, and we understand that. But at some point, we can then understand how they're linked to each other, and always be careful of correlation and causation. We know that. But as a rule, I'm talking now that if, for example, health is very important, preventative sort of medicine and nutrition is the foundation of all these things that have gone wrong. And nutrition is at the base of it. We're not talking about genetic disorders or maybe some other medical, but some interesting things with a lot of illnesses I've been reading about is, and something I read really interesting was, genetics loaded the gun, environment pulled the trigger. I find that very interesting because we can see there's very complex interactions going on many levels. And that's why you need doctors and researchers and people pooling together to figure out things out. However, look at got now. Let's go back to that. We see the food waste that goes in there. What are people eating? What are children eating? And then what are the hens eating, by the way? Because what problems we have, if the hens are eating only junk food, then they won't be the healthiest hen they can be, in their retirement. So we can start looking at what children are eating. And that's part of got too. It's not only the problem of food waste and the fact that food waste would go into landfill and release methane, which is something like 28 times worse than CO2. So we're looking at a lot of problem here. And then we say, oh, don't drive the car, don't do something. But food waste is a big source of pollution, of greenhouse gases. But also we're looking at, this is why I find got so interesting, is that we're looking at soil health, we're looking at biodiversity, we're looking at food production. So children can learn all these things, but also we're looking at nutrition. What's going into our bellies? What's going into their bodies? And we look at it, there's a lot of carbohydrates there, but a lot of unhealthy carbohydrates, French fries, white processed things, sugary things. And what are we doing? So this is really important as well. And it goes back to how much of this can be prevented or how much can change. Because we see with certain neurodivergent children, we might see that whilst it may not be the cause of it, we see that the gut biome. I did a really interesting course. I injured my foot, so I was bedbound. And I did a very interesting online, it was an online conference we had to sign up for on nutrition in children. Incredibly interesting. Again, we had doctors, we had scientists coming in. It was a brilliant all-day conference. And it was so much about how food and gut biome, gut-brain axis, and now we know there are gut-lung axis and lots of things, but how it affects our health. Mental health also is affected by gut biome. So we need to look at gut biome and inflammation and what kind of bacteria is in there. And olive oil is very good. It promotes the good bacteria growth, but it also helps contain the bad bacteria and the harmful bacteria. That's very interesting. So you see, it all ties together. Yeah. For me, it's all, as long as we can compartmentalize depending on research and how we can lay it out, but it's all tied together.
Right. It's all systemic. Yeah.
And that's why you can study many things.
Yeah.
You can do that and then do another course, and you can be working and do a course, and you can be working and do more. It never stops. Never stop. Keep going. It's, I go crazy if I'm not doing something, learning something new every day.
You've learned a lot and you've done so many courses. As an environmental science student that I will be wanting to major in this field, what advice could you give me, or what advice could you give future students who want to go into this very diverse field of study?
I think this is one of the main studies of the future, one of the main things to study, because we have one planet and we are destroying it. And I mean, I'm sure you've been all over media and you've seen BBC and you've seen David Attenborough's comments. This is the generation that can bring change and see change. Because we've seen this decline and we can learn from this. But it's the number one thing. If our environment's not happy and if our environment's not healthy, then we're probably not going to be or end up being. And I'm talking as a whole. And and there's a ripple effect, a knockdown effect, knock-on effect, and but it's really important in and of itself, because we need to respect it and respect nature and the species out there and the wonderful diversity that is our planet and the beauty, but also functionally as well. Like, we need to protect it so we can also have a better life and survive. It's the number one thing. Without that, we're done. I mean, can you imagine living in a polluted environment? You can, because we see it, or we need to work on this. So you need to keep going. And you need to get more people to study this. And it can be, you can do medicine, or you can do epidemiology and then look into this environmental factor. You can do architecture and look how you can make your buildings more sustainable and how they can promote fresh air or clean air or save, resources, collect water. And all fields can do that, really important. We can.
Good luck, Lily. Never ends.
Never ends. And just, that's the one thing, keep going always. And there'll be a lot of things you can do as a student. But you know what, for me, I know, and I sound like don't go out, but really you have a chance to be a student and to have access to libraries and campuses. And yes, a lot of people are going to do a lot of things, and I may sound quite boring, but I didn't do many of those things.
Boring?
No, boring as in, people say, well, you should go out, doing studenty things in the sense of, partying. And I get that. Students need to, I'm not, but you have access to, to libraries and things that you won't have on a daily basis after you've left university, after you've left academia. Yeah. And okay, there's online resources now, but there's something magical about being in an academic institution. And also always remember to be open-minded, think outside the box, lateral thinking, really important to problem solving, and always find different ways to do something. Or, sometimes, problem can be, the answer to a solution. And that's how it has to be, because a lot of times you go in somewhere and you end up being, but just always have an open mind, I think.
Yeah.
And keep studying and keep learning things.
Thank you for coming. It's really inspiring to know that there is change going on in Cyprus. As a student that wants to go into this field, I found it very interesting getting to know more about the diversity of this culture that we have here.
Okay. Thank you for having me. And anything you want, you can always email me or ask questions, and you can come visit if you want the Grove. You can come visit the Grove.
Visiting sounds wonderful.
Really fun.